Hello, my name is Brian Bush, and I'm the park manager for the Perryville Battlefield State Historic Site. And in some of my YouTube videos, I talked about Simonson's guns at the Battle of Perryville and also Turner's battery at the Battle of Perryville. And I thought I'd make a video today about the artillery rounds that were used in not only rifled guns, but also smoothbore guns. And the first examples that you see here is solid shot. But before I go into that, let me tell you at the Battle of Perryville, there were 203 cannons on the battlefield, but only 90 of those cannons were engaged in battle. The average Union battery had about 6 guns, and the Confederate battery had about 4. Now, solid shot was a solid projectile that included no explosive charge. For a smoothbore, the projectile was a round cannonball. For a rifled gun, the projectile was referred to as a bolt and had a cylindrical or spherical shape. In both cases, the projectile was used for a battering effect, particularly effective for destroying enemy cannons, limbers, and caissons, and the wagons that were carrying ammunition rounds or supplies. Solid shot was also effective for mowing down columns of infantry and cavalry and had a psychological effect against its targets. Despite its effectiveness, many artillerymen were reluctant to use solid shot, preferring the explosive types of ordnance. With solid projectiles, accuracy was the paramount consideration, and they also caused more tube wear than their explosive counterparts. While rifle cannons had much greater accuracy on average than smoothbores, the smoothbores had an average rifle firing round shot relative to the bolts fired from rifled pieces. Round shot could be employed in a ricochet manner and were effective on land and in water, while bolts tended to dig in rather than actually ricochet. Now, the examples that I show you here on the left is your solid shot cannonball. On your right is a bolt, and this one would have been used in a Parrott gun. And then the front here, we show you a reproduction of what it would have looked like. And this is a solid shot cannonball with a strap to it, and the strap was attached to the wooden sabot. And what was attached to the wooden sabot is this cloth or muslin bag that would have been filled in with black powder. Now, when the artillerist rammed this round to the back end of the tube, a cannoneer would have taken a priming wire to prick open the black powder cartridge, exposing the black powder. Then a friction primer would have been put into the vent hole of a cannon, creating a spark which would have ignited this round and then shot the cannonball out. Now we're going to move on to our next round here, and this is known as shell. Now, shells contain an explosive charge and were designed to burst into fragments in the midst of the enemy troops. For smoothbores, the projectile was referred to as spherical shell. Shells were more effective against troops behind obstacles or earthworks, and they were good for destroying wooden buildings by setting them on fire. They were ineffective against good quality masonry. A primary weakness of shell was that it typically produced only a few large fragments. Spherical shell used time fuses, while rifled shell could use time fuses or be detonated on impact by percussion fuse. Fuse reliability was a concern. Any shell that buried itself in the earth before detonating had little anti-personnel effectiveness. Now, the next one also, case or spherical case for smoothbores, were anti-personnel projectiles carrying a small burst charge and was more effective than shell against exposed troops. While shell produced only a few large fragments, case was loaded with lead or iron balls and was designed to burst above the heads of the enemy troops or before the enemy line, showering down many more small but destructive projectiles on the enemy. The effect was similar to a weaker version of canister shot, which we'll cover here in a second. With case, the lethality of the balls and fragments came from the velocity of the projectile itself. The small burst charge only fragmented the case and dispersed the shrapnel. The spherical case, using a 12-pound Napoleon, contained about 78 balls. The name shrapnel derives from its inventor, Mr. Henry Shrapnel. The primary limitations to case effectiveness came in judging the range, setting the fuse accordingly, and the reliability and variability of the fuse itself. Now, we have several different examples here. The one on your left that you see here is a 6-pounder spherical case with a Borman time fuse. Then the one right next to it could have been spherical case or possibly case shot. You can see where the round had fragmented into large sections. You can see where the fuse would have been screwed into the spherical case or possibly case shot. Now again, this could have been a case shot if it was filled with smaller balls on the inside of it. We'll never know here because this round had already exploded. Now the one on the top here that you see would have been a Parrott spherical case. On the very top you would have seen where the fuse would have screwed in, and then the inside of it would have had a black powder charge. And again, this could have been either used by a time fuse or it could have had a percussion fuse. And we'll take a look at a percussion fuse in just a second here. Well, we're going to move into the next round here, and that is known as grape shot. Now, grape shot was originated as a naval round for cutting enemy rigging or clearing packed decks of personnel, and was a predecessor of and a variation on canister shot, in which a smaller number of large metal balls were arranged on stacked iron plates with a threaded bolt running down the center to hold them as a unit inside the barrel. It was used at a time when some cannons burst when loaded with too much gunpowder, but as cannons got stronger, grape was replaced by canister shot. A grape round or stand using a 12-pound Napoleon cannon used 9 balls. By the time of the Civil War, grape shot was pretty much obsolete and largely replaced by canister shot. And again, I've shown you a drawing of what grape shot would have looked like. And here's one of the rounds in grape shot. Now the next round we're going to move up to and take a look at. This is Archer round. Now Archer projectiles are named after Dr. Junius L. Archer, owner of the Bologna Foundry, which was located in Virginia. This projectile has 2 deep grooves on a tapered cone to help hold the lead sabot in during the firing. The majority of the fired Archer projectiles are found with the lead sabot missing. And the space between the lead band and the projectile body was a lubricated hemp rope. During firing, this hemp rope was forced into the grooves of the cannon when the lead sabot expanded. The lubricant reduced friction and a subsequent wear on the cannon. Now the next round I'm going to show you here is known as canister shot. And it was the most deadliest type of ammunition, consisting of a thin metal container containing tight layers of lead or iron balls packed in sawdust. Upon exiting the muzzle of the cannon, the container disintegrated and the balls fanned out as the equivalent of a very large shotgun blast. Now, the effective range of canister was only about 400 yards, but within that range, dozens of enemy infantrymen could be mowed down. Even more devastating was double canister, generally used only in dire circumstances at extremely close range, where 2 containers of canister shot were fired simultaneously using the single regular powder charge. And here is a drawing of what is inside one of these canister shots, and that is an original canister round, one of the round balls that was found on the battlefield. And this is a reproduction showing you what one of these canister shots look like. And attached to it is the wooden sabot, and attached to it is the black powder cartridge made out of a muslin or cotton bag filled with black powder. Now we're going to move over here. And this is known as a James rifle shell, or bolt, I should say. The James rifle, even before the start of the Civil War, an ordnance board recommended that rifling be added to the 6-pounder field guns in order to improve their accuracy. James rifles were an early solution to the need for rifled artillery at the start of the war. 6-pounder bronze guns could be rifled to fire the projectiles, which was invented by Charles Tillinghast James. Some were simply rifled to their initial 3.67-inch bore. Others were reamed out to about a 3.80-inch rifle. Although the James rifles were reported to be extremely accurate, the bronze rifling wore out rapidly, and the James rifles and projectiles soon fell out of favor. No James rifles are known to have been produced after 1862. The total numbers of James rifles are uncertain. But in 1862, in the Ohio Quartermaster General Annual Report, they recorded 82 rifled bronze pieces. 40 of those are specified as 3.80 bore out of a total of 162 of all the field artillery types. Unusual or out of favor types were sent to the Western theaters. Now this one happens to be a Type 1 James rifle bolt. The next round that I can show you here is known as a Schenkel shell. It was produced for federal armies in several patterns, of which this was the most common. The tapering rear cone, with its 7 raised ribs, is one of the most distinctive attributes of any projectile of the period. In use, this cone was covered with a papier-mâché sabot. Confederate specimens often used wooden sabots, which were less flexible and therefore less effective. The diameter of this shell is 2.92 inches and was fired from a 3-inch ordnance rifle. And the item that you see right next to it is a Schenkel shell fuse. And this one is a percussion fuse, meaning that when it struck the ground, there's a percussion cap inside of it, and the plunger would have struck that percussion cap, igniting the black powder inside the fuse, would have ignited the entire round, bursting it into small pieces. And we're going to clear the table here, and I'll show you some of the other artifacts that belong to artillerymen in our museum collection. Now what you see here is a Greenwood's Eagle Foundry Gunner's Kit. This kit contains a gunner's level and a tangent scale sight. The gunner's level was used to determine the highest point on the cannon breech so the sight could be placed for the maximum effect. The tangent sight was then used to determine the degree of elevation for the shot. Now, although the instruments themselves were made by other manufacturers, Greenwood supplied this kit with every cannon he sold, except for mortars. These tools were obsolete by the time of the Battle of Perryville. The pendulum Hawk sight was the preferred method in the Civil War. And again, in one of my earlier videos, I talked about the Greenwood number 20, which you can see right here. And this was the sight kit that was issued for the Greenwood number 20. Some of the artifacts that we also have in our collection here at the Perryville Battlefield State Historic Site is this original lanyard. What you would have used this for is this would attach to the friction primer. Then the gunner, the number 4 man, would have yanked this, creating a spark through the friction primer into the black powder charge, igniting the round. And above that, this is a gunner's gimlet. And then this item that you see here is a cannoneer's pouch. And what would have been inside here is the friction primers, the thumb stall, and the lanyard, all inside this. And all 3 of these items belong to Private Joseph N. Hill of the 24th Independent Battery, Ohio Light Artillery. And then the next item that we're going to look at here, and this is a button that was found on the battlefield from the U.S. Army Ordnance Corps. And the Ordnance Corps is what actually supplied the artillery with their ammunition rounds. And then the next item that we have here is a Model 1830 Eagle's Head artillery saber. And the reason why it's called a saber, not a sword, is because it has an upturn to the blade. And again, thank you for watching my videos on YouTube. Continue to watch as we will have more videos made on our collection here. And again, thank you. And come by and visit us at the Perryville Battlefield State Historic Site. And again, my name is Brian Bush.